Hi guys, how you doing? This is Madhvi from TaroticallySpeaking.com and elearntarot.com. And today we are looking into the astrology of the Nine of Swords, which is Mars in Gemini. So, when you see Mars, I guess we've come, we've run the whole gamut of planets, we've come right back to the first planet, that we started with, which was Mars in Aries, right? So we've gone through all the planets. Now we are here again, and this time we are in Gemini. Okay. So this is a period of 10 days that starts from around about the 1st of June and goes about all the way to the 10th of June. Okay. So let's understand this Decan energy first. This is the second Decan of Gemini, so the middle one of Gemini, which spans 11 degrees to 20 degrees of the sign. And here the description from Picatrix is a man with the face of a griffin, tied with a turban, wearing a shield made of lead, and armed with a helmet of iron on his head. On top of the helmet is a crown made of brocade. He's holding a bow and arrow in his hand. This, I know, like they had this whole thing with the Decans, right? Like this description was like often is pretty wild and out there. But what is made of it is the keywords associated with that Decan would be trudging, motivation, speed, violence, unprofitable haste, right? So that makes, I guess, the bow and arrow could refer to the sharpness of the thoughts. Yes. The fact that his head is sort of protected could talk about, the fact that, it is air energy, but he's protected from it, right? And of course, the bow and arrow does have that element of violence in it. And so, yeah, let's look at the card from the Telos tarot deck. This, of course, has the two characters, which, since because it's Gemini, we have two characters here. And the keyword is cruelty. We also see these swords with the blood dripping from them. And then we have these two characters. One is the eagle headed man with the bow and arrow, and he's wearing a sort of a crowned steel helmet, whereas this lion-headed man has seems to have stabbed himself, maybe with one of the swords, or maybe he's holding one of the things in his hand. So these are twins. The lion represents despair, and the eagle-headed guy represents cruelty. And so we have ruthless and cruel words. If they're directed outward, right, they are that would be cruelty, and directed inwards, they are despair. So it's like, how do you talk to others? How do you talk to yourself, right? So when you talk, horribly with other people, you're being cruel. Or when you're talking that way with yourself, you are, creating that, you're hurting yourself, right? And so we see this whole vibe here, and that's the cruelty. So this cruelty could be again directed outwards or inwards, but it is not a good idea. And this is the power of the mind, which Gemini is, I think, representing in this whole situation, in this Decan. Okay. My God. Okay. So let's go. Let's take a look very quickly, because now we've kind of already gone through this. We know, we understand, we've met these planets before, and we sort of know what the energy is about. So I won't linger here because we've done that, but I will go over it so that it becomes relevant to what we're looking at in terms of the cards. So Mars, of course, we know is the god of war. He is that pure masculine aggression, physical energy, sexuality, right? He's this planet represents the passions and the animalistic energy, that impulse to take action, to take risk, to kind of go out there and do it, and the ambition, right? He can, of course, become a little aggressive, angry, not a little, but Mars is literally the god of war. So, that's kind of par for the course, that he needs to be aggressive, and angry and rash. but he can be very hostile too. So depending on the situation, depending on how your Mars is positioned in the chart, or maybe even in the transit as it moves through your chart, you can see that energy show up in the different areas of your life, in good or bad ways, depending on how you channel that energy, right, in different situations. So we are looking at a very angry, action taking, motion is the keyword here, but also very ambitious, very resilient, but also very strongly pushy vibe that Mars brings to the table. Okay. And when we look at that energy represented in our tarot, we see the big tower, which often represents existing structures, establishments, anything, even like in the outer world, yes, those are your existing structures, establishments, governments, and such, or big actual big buildings and so forth, which you know symbolically or metaphorically, or sometimes even in actuality, represent the rules, regulations, the law, all that sort of thing. Those are those structures. And then this lightning bolt comes and here we have that eye. That's the eye of Shiva, by the way, which is very interesting. So differently, and I think there is a lightning bolt here as well. The point is, this lightning bolt represents that divine energy of uh, maybe Zeus, because he had lightning. But, essentially, this is that sudden energy, destructive energy that comes in, and this entire structure is broken apart. Okay. And those who live within these walls are going to be thrown out. Those who depend on this, those who lean on these structures, will be left with nothing but, crumbling rocks. So this is the destructive way through which we see the energy of Mars in the tarot, where essentially we see how, through these different symbols, that Mars energy is sort of representing that divine, lightning bolt that comes in to break down all the established structures. So outwardly, as I said, this could represent your governments, your legal systems, or any such systems, organizations, and so forth. But inwardly, these structures are also your belief systems. These structures are your habits. These structures are your principles, even, for that matter, because they are the towering sort of, structures. Yes, I keep repeating that word, but yes, they are that, that give you the framework for living your life. So now, when Mars is represented here, it is saying, hey, I'm the god of war, and I will break everything down inwardly and outwardly. Mars has that power to come in and create that chaos, to break these structures up. And if you notice, all of these structures, if you see, it's dark inside, right? All inside all these towers, it's pretty dark. That to me is very, very significant, because what happens is, initially maybe those structures had a purpose, had a role to play, which was good. And over time, those towers, as they grow taller and taller and taller, and the walls, they grow thicker and thicker, well, the windows are less. As you can see, there's only like maybe 3 windows here. Huh? And those don't let in as much light. And that means that the more and more this system builds on itself and starts, creating those layers upon layers of rules, regulations, and everything, the darkness within that system grows. And so you need the kind of energy that Mars represents to come and break this whole thing down. And that is what Mars is bringing to the table here, the breakdown of all these structures. And that's what the tower is in our tarot. It is the complete and utter destruction of all the things and all the structures and all the rules, regulations, both inward, outward, that you have created to initially to do something good, but now have become like a prison. They become dark. They block out the light of insight, and Mars has to come in to break it up. Yeah. Wow. So the sign Gemini, again, we saw this the last time. I like how it's represented like cross pollinate. We have two flowers, two bees collecting the pollen and so forth. Gemini is about duality. It's about, twin everything. It is about networks. It is about connections. It is about words because it's an air sign. It is about expression. It is about, talking, because when there are two, they will always keep talking. Now the myth here, and I remember saying that I'll talk about it next time, because the myth here is about the twin gods, Castor and Pollux. They were twins, but one was mortal. I believe Castor was mortal and Pollux was immortal. So eventually, when Castor died, Pollux was pretty distraught. So he went to his father and begged him. And Zeus was then like, fine, you can, share your immortality with your brother. And so he transformed them into that constellation. So here again, we see this whole duality, the whole, the readiness of Pollux to share his immortality with his brother, because again, he could have been like, oh, it's a sad thing, my brother died, and he could have moved on, but he didn't, right? He wanted his brother. Because that was like his other half in a certain way. Like, he couldn't imagine his life without his brother. So we have that duality, we have that connection, we have that sort of, again, two different vibes. We have one who is a mortal, one who is an immortal. They are same and yet different, something like that. It's very, very potently there, the duality. Now, Gemini energy again can bring in that, that whole scenario where we have, you know, two different perspectives, two different points of view. They can really, really see the differences and the similarities between things. They can often be people who are, two-faced. To be frank, they can talk both sides, and it's a little tricky vibe with Gemini like that. I'm not saying all Geminis are like that. I'm just saying that Gemini brings that energy. It's a great ability if you choose to use it that way, right? But then on the shadow side, they can be shallow, they can be a little fickle, there's deception and cunning, there's a lack of individuality, because again, they agree with everybody. So like, what is your truth? And maybe that's their search. They can be eventually a bit cynical too, because again, they can't stand for anything, like, one side or the other. They all see both sides. So, we have this big Gemini vibe, the duality that comes in. And in the tarot, we see that beautifully represented. Again, the perfect duality. We have the male and the female here. And we even here we have two women, the older one and the younger one, and this dude has to make a choice. In the thought, we see that, we have the opposites, right? Even in the coloring of their skin, we see that opposition here. In the gender, of course, we see that. We see, this is an inward and the outward kind of, and this blessing here, even with Lilith and Eve, I believe, right? So there's this whole dual energy and the new seed of creation and everything. And what is happening here is, for instance, in the Rider Waite, we see Adam and Eve, right, who have acquired that knowledge and are now receiving the blessings. And, they both need each other in different ways, right? So Adam looks at her, at Eve, and she's the one who will bring the energy to kind of, to him, to make him whole in a way. But she then has a very beautiful connection to the divine directly. So she looks at the angel who is now giving them the blessings, right? So they each bring a certain aspect of themselves into that equation to make it whole. Here now, this young man has to choose. Okay, his mother, perhaps, who nourished him till he was a young man, and however, now he has to go be with his wife because they now need to start their own family, and a new life will begin. Eventually, I guess this lady will be in this position where her child will leave to go be with his wife. So the cycle continues. This guy makes that choice. He has to move forward. Here again, we see the union of the opposites happen, and here again, this is again different. This is again, like a different vibe with the Telos tarot. We see the prophet has risen, and we have two different young people. We have the priestess here. We have this. I believe this is the harlot, right? The sacred and the profane, and so we have dual perspectives into the same energy. The feminine energy in this case is about, bringing uh, life, wisdom, creation into the world. And there are different ways of doing that. So the priestess has her way, the harlot has hers. And so this is what they're trying to show here, right? And each is, again, connected to the divine in her own way. So we see all of this. We see the duality of Gemini represented here beautifully through this different imagery in different decks, which is fantastic. And this is the opposite energies which ultimately have to come together. So even here, these two have to eventually work together if they want to be with this, have this person in their life, right? These two also, they come together and they create this, these two children, the babies, right? Here too, they worship the same god. So it's like that. So this duality ultimately has to seek, they have to separate, and then they come together, and then they separate and they come together, and that's the whole push and pull that keeps happening, I suppose, within this Gemini energy that we see here in the Lovers card. Okay, so what happens when we have Mars in Gemini? Now, according to the Oracle of the Radiant Sun, we see this the keyword being decision, because Mars, in that booklet, it's Mars is the keyword for Mars is action, for Gemini it's mental awareness, right? So we see this beautiful chessboard here, and the logic is that this is chess is a big strategic game, and if you see this, we have there's a bishop surrounded by the horse, I'm sorry, the the knight, and another bishop and pawn. So this again, if you sit here and analyze the chess situation, you'll probably see what's going on. Essentially, this is all about strategy, being competitive, and trying to sort of finagle away, make some kind of really strategic decisions, which is the keyword. This the wheel with the wing, it's like flying through air. We have the air energy here, and this doorway, which is, I think, pretty interesting imagery here. We have this wall and we have this doorway here, which is all about move into an unknown territory. So here in this particular card, or through in this deck, Mars in Gemini is represented as, taking action in the mental sphere. So it's mental work, manual dexterity, because Gemini being, the sign where mind can go in different directions, we have that, and Mars powers it. Mars is also fire, Gemini is air. Fire and air really energetically, elementally support each other, so it's good. This Mars energy supports that Gemini energy. So we have something which is fast moving. It's about, rushing around, gathering information. These people could be good with debates. They are brilliant with verbal comebacks, sharp and aggressive repartee, verbal battles, right? Mars is fighting, and Gemini could be verbal. It's arguments, cross questioning. So there's a lot of this, heavy fighting energy here because of Mars. And then, it's words and documents, words again. That's Gemini. Perspectives. You have debates and repartees and sarcasm, This could be inventive, ingenious, decisive. Okay. They're multitaskers, versatility in thought and action, right? But on the shadow side, they are unable to wait and endure because, Mars is very action oriented and Gemini has split it amongst the different thought process and figured it out. So they're like, let's go. They can be argumentative. This is physical and mental manipulation. They have a talent for that, obviously. And gossip mongering. Oh my God, yes. Right? This could be very vicious gossip mongering too, if you get the whole Mars vibe, right? So, yeah, so this is the perspective that this deck has taken. That, it's slightly a bit positive, like positive, I would say, where we have strategy, we have the ability to go into the unknown areas, we have someone who can look at different angles, come together, have like an argument, very very well articulated even, right? So we have all these beautiful and slightly not so great angles to this card. So far so good. Oh yeah, let's quickly look at the number 9 from the 9 of swords, right? 9 is, if from the numerology angle, 9 is where everything wraps up. Like the journey begins with 0, we finally at 9 the journey wraps up, right? Those are the numbers. So 9 is the culmination and completion, right? 9 is where all your wishes come together. 9 is also ambition. 9 is about rewards and consequences. 9 is where ultimately you are emotionally changed. 9 can also have that sort of humanitarian, social reform kind of vibe to it, because I guess when you ultimately achieve what you want, then you can also sort of look at the world around you and try to, improve that as well. So it has that very universal vibe, spiritual creativity, divine love kind of vibe. 9 essentially is the reward for all the actions that you have previously taken. And in some spaces, 9 can also mean disappointment. Okay. So this is the whole energy of 9, where it's basically a culminations and rewards for everything. And then once you have that, you're also now interested in changing your outer world. So let's look at our tarot cards. 9 of Swords. Oof. Anybody who's worked with Rider-Waite-Smith, this is a familiar image. We see this young man, he's sitting in his bed with his hands on his face, these 9 swords hanging up over there in the darkness. And then on the bed, too, we see here we have this, image of this man with a sword, I think, coming and maybe defeating this guy. So this is all about nightmares. This is about, the inner fights that we have, because nightmares, dreams essentially are what our subconscious is trying to tell us something, right? So when we are having those kind of nightmares, it's a message from within. Something is there's like an inner tussle, inner fight, right? And this guy, I often look at this guy with his hands on his face. It's like, oh my God, he's not ready to face it. He's not ready to face what's going on. He's tormented by those nightmares, by those thoughts, by those whatever it is that's going on. So whether it is something he did or something that happened to him, right? We also see very interestingly on this, the cover that he has, his bed cover is his blanket. We have these red roses, which we know are the roses of desire. But then interspersed between that, in those little blue checks, we have the glyphs, the astrological glyphs. Pay attention. Look at your cards. You'll notice these are astrological glyphs. What does that tell you? That there is desire, and then this represents the passage of time, right? Like the different signs and the planets. This is your energy. All of us have all the 12 planets. I'm sorry, 12 signs and 9 planets in our chart in different positions. All of the abilities, qualities, energies are present within us, different combinations maybe, but yes, we have that. There is that desire too. So essentially, these thoughts that are tormenting this man Maybe they come from his past because, 9 bringing the consequences energy, but they are also something that he cannot face, that he cannot deal with. This is bothering him, right? So that's your anxiety, worry, sleepless nights, insomnia, nightmares, all of that. He's avoiding this reality, and given time, things will likely sort themselves out, but he has to allow himself, he has to remove those hands from his eyes and sort of face it. And in this darkness, he needs to see what the situation is, face those realities instead of running away from it, perhaps, right? Now, the Marseille Tarot image is a little interesting because when you see here again, this is, if you remember the Eight of Swords, it's the same thing, but now instead of the little flower in the middle, we have a sword sort of cutting through this little enclosure that was created. So remember, those 8 swords had created an enclosure, and we know swords are thoughts, swords are the mind. So when your mind has created this kind of enclosure, and these little seeds or buds are outside of that enclosure, right? So something can happen, but you should come out of this space. And this sword here, it has pushed through that and come outside. So this is about overcoming the inner confusion or winning the battle against superior forces through courage and determination. So again, you are leveraging the power of your mind to break through this sort of enclosure that your mind has again created, right? So using your own mind to overcome your own mind's sort of restrictive energy. And this requires courage. This requires determination. This requires you to remain positive and hopeful and push through no matter what. Hmm? So this is a little positive. This is like, okay, here this person is stuck. There are options. Here they have used their options to push through. Hmm? But when you come to the Thoth image, oh my God, right? Like the first time in my life when I looked at this picture, I was like, oh my God. Because now you see these 8 swords. And I don't know if these are like gems in the sword or it's the blood, because we definitely have dripping blood. And I'm like, this is crazy. This is real violent. We see that, the crackling energy of Gemini in the background, and we see the dripping blood. That's the war, right? War god Mars has to create that. So, swords, they cut, blood drips out. So, there is this very brutal vibe, right? And we do see that Mars brings that. So when you use the mind's power to go from different, look at different perspectives, and that's your Gemini energy, but you use them with that very brutal, negative, warlike intent that comes from Mars, you will see this. You will see tyranny, you will see violence. The atmosphere becomes poisonous and dangerous. It's horrible, right? There could be guilt, worries, panic, phobias, all sorts of negativity. This word cruelty, therefore, is not completely without merit. It is cruel, in fact, to use your mind's power with such negative intent, obviously. And same, we see this here as well. We see this eagle-headed man with the bow and arrow, and then we see that this lion has sort of stabbed himself. We also see the swords everywhere, and we see the drops of blood. This is the duality, two different approaches, perhaps, right? The eagle, the lion, and it's as I said earlier. This is where we look at ruthless and cruel words, which is the ruthlessness that comes from Gemini, even, and cruel words of Gemini, even Mars that way can be ruthless and cruel, and when the whole thing combines, that ruthlessness and cruelty when directed inwards can is really bad, and outwards is also bad. So both those energies, right? Inwardly he's killed himself, outwardly he's gonna kill someone else that way with his bow and arrow. Man, this is not a fun picture, is it? But this is what happens. So Nine of Swords in this scenario, variously, what we see is where our thoughts, the mind, the way that Gemini brings that duality into play, where you look at two different points of thoughts or logic or ideas, perspectives, opposing energies, really, in that way. And then in comes the god of war with his anger, with his passion, with his energy and fire. And so now if we are looking at these duality of thoughts and the ability of the mind to go from here to there and see and talk and express, and we bring that sort of fiery Martian energy. And so now we have, when it's fear direct, all that energy directed inwards creates this nightmarish situation. Outwards, we have this, cruel situation. When, I guess, when used in a good way, it can help you break through and break past this restriction. So we see different shades of that energy show up, right? This is still, mental torture, but here this is like dripping blood. I mean, come on, you can't be more. How expressive can you get here? And here is also, like a direct consequence of it all. And here is a slightly positive shade to it. So we do see that this is how that mind's duality is now being weaponized. It's being made into a powerful and sometimes painful weapon, and depends on where you direct it, it will inflict a certain kind of damage. This is harsh. Oh boy. So, our supporting cast, again, they are the same as the one prior. We have the Ace of Pentacles, again with Gemini, Ace of Pentacles and the Page of Pentacles that we'll see again in a little bit. These cards will probably bring some groundedness, some stability, which again, Gemini energy is not very happy with that. It's not going to, they don't really do well with this. And Earth and Air energetically, elementally also are not very friendly towards each other, obviously. And we see that, and here we have that, or the root of the powers of Earth kind of thing. So this Ace and then this Page, they want to root that energy down. It's hard, but if Gemini energy does find some grounding, they perhaps might find some like a calm spot to heal from that flitting mind, and sort of say, hey, let's see this now, let's solve this. But then of course in comes the King of Swords, because he's also around, and he's gonna be like cutting through the bullshit. And probably this energy is good, because when you are in that dual state of mind, or when you have Mars now sort of bringing in that bloodlust bloodthirsty vibe, maybe you need a King of Swords, either to take that energy and go forth and cause more mayhem, or to kind of talk Mars down the ledge. Like, calm down, buddy, let's think this through, and let's not maybe be cruel, or something like that. Good God. Right? So this is your King of Swords, with the willpower, with the determination, with the sort of the mental strength that is necessary to kind of maybe balance out Gemini's, flitting about from one point to the other crazy vibe. Hmm? So let's put it together. Here we are. We have all these the Decan, yeah, with this, the head is protected here with the helmet and everything, right? And so there is that, and the desire to take action, the fiery Mars energy, and then this, Mars and Gemini, they can sort of the combination, which is all about strategy and decision, and the power to sort of just go into that unknown, open that door, see what's up there, right? We see how Mars shows up as the destructive power. And again, that destruction is there for good or for evil, and it will break down. So any time that we have structures that bring darkness, that Mars energy is there to break them down. right? And then we have the duality of Gemini, where things aren't just singular. There's always expressed in terms of opposites, and perhaps that's a different way to arrive at that unity, where it's not this, but it's both of them together, and yet not both of them, something like that. So we have that energy here in Gemini, with the connections, with the conversations, with expression. It's air energy ultimately. Then when they all come together, we have this sort of, that it's brutal, it's tough, it requires you to be brave enough to face your fears. And if when you do, you are able to break through that sort of your mind that has sort of encircled you, and you're able to overcome that and come out on the other side and sort of look at, see how you self-directed or outwardly directed, it's your inner turmoil that, when powered up, that inner turmoil of Gemini, when powered with the power, that fiery, I guess, destructive energy of Mars, that can be painful, but you can use that, leverage that to break through that mindset blockage if you want to. And you have the necessary grounding from the Ace and the Page of Pentacles, and even the King of Swords can come in handy if you need if you need that smart lawyer vibe by your, at your back, saying, "Hey, you got this. You can tackle this energy." And here, ultimately, with the Nine, you have come to more or less the conclusion. You are receiving exactly the rewards of the actions that you have put forth. So in the Eight of Swords, if you've allowed yourself to remain stuck here in that enclosure of your thoughts, then this is where you're heading in the Nine of Swords. Those thoughts are going to consume you and hurt you and create that energy of harsh powerlessness. And so you need to use the Mars energy to break through it. Take that energy and face it, and that's how you'll get out. That's how you'll overcome it. Wow, that was interesting. So let me know what you think. Let me know if this made sense to you. And of course, I will put all of this in a blog on my site. Now, I do want to say here that most times when I am writing that blog, I do take a little bit of a transcript of all that I sort of spontaneously say when I'm recording the video, and then I make it nicer. So if you want a nicer version, that's on the blog. If you want a more, maybe a little coherent version that is not some little spontaneous, but more like, okay, I planned out, organize it maybe, then you have that on the blog. But also on the blog, I end up writing some journal prompts. So if you are interested in exploring that, you will find that on the blog as well. Also, I have handouts and all the things. The links are here in the video description and also on the blog. So whatever format appeals to you. Okay. My goodness. So again, in another 10 days or so, we have 10 of Swords, right? And I will come back with that card after this date. And I will talk to you then about the 10 of Swords. Wow. All right. So I guess I will see you again in my next video. Until then, stay good, be good, and play with your cards. Bye now.